Entitled Dad at the airport tried to take my booked seat and get me moved to economy. He grabbed my arm and tried to pull me out of the seat, shouting that I was stealing his spot in first class. Yes, you read that right. Before our flight even took off, I found myself literally wrestling over my own seat with an entitled dad who decided that my first class seat should belong to him and his family. Let me set the scene. I'm at the airport, boarding a long-haul flight that I had saved up to fly business class for the first time in my life. I'm a pretty quiet 20-something guy traveling alone. I was exhausted from a connecting flight and looking forward to finally relaxing in a spacious seat. Little did I know I was about to star in a one-man WWE match over seat 4A. It all started as soon as I stepped onto the plane. I was one of the last to board. I had a short connection, so I barely made it. I walked through the first-class cabin, scanning the seat numbers. Mine was 4A, a window seat. But when I got there, a man was already sitting in it, and next to him in the adjacent seat, 4B, was a little toddler, maybe 3 or 4 years old, swinging her legs happily. The man had a distinct dad look, mid-40s, wearing a crumpled polo shirt, a diaper bag shoved under the seat. The little girl was hugging a stuffed unicorn, kicking the seat in front of her energetically. For a second, I wondered if I got the seat wrong. I double-checked. Seat 4A was clearly printed on my boarding pass. So I politely said, "Excuse me, I think this is my seat." I give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he sat in the wrong row by accident. It happens. The man looks up at me with a sharp glare. "No, this is our seat," he says, matter of fact, not even budging. The toddler looks from him to me, sensing tension. I stay calm and show him my boarding pass. "I have 4A. See." I indicate the seat number. He doesn't even glance at my boarding pass. He just repeats, more impatiently, "You need to find somewhere else to sit. I'm traveling with my kid and we need this seat." I'm a bit taken aback. Okay, maybe they got separated seats and he wants to sit with his kid. I can sympathize to a degree, but I also specifically paid extra to be here. And it's not like first-class seats are general admission at a concert. Everyone has an assigned spot. "I'm sorry," I say, trying to stay polite but firm, "but I paid for this seat. Do you have the ticket for it?" At this, the man huffs angrily. He fishes out a crumpled boarding pass from his pocket and waves it at me. "We have seats 12B and 12C. That's economy. Way back in row 12. But my daughter likes it up here, and we need to sit together. So go take our seats in economy. It's not a big deal, kid." He calls me kid even though I'm an adult, probably because I'm younger than him. I reply, "I'm sorry, but no, that's not how it works. This is my seat, and I'm not moving." I can feel my heart starting to pound. I hate confrontations, and the other first-class passengers are glancing over. I even catch one older gentleman across the aisle, raising an eyebrow. Meanwhile, the little girl now scrunches her face like she might start crying because her dad is getting angry. Great, an audience and a potentially upset child, just what I need. The father's face flushes red. "Look, I'm with my child," he says through gritted teeth as if explaining something obvious to a moron. "She's only 4. We have to sit together. The airline screwed up and gave us separate seats. A little compassion here." He's practically spitting with indignation. Now part of me does feel a little sorry for the kid. She's swinging her unicorn and looking between us like she's confused and a bit scared. But there's also so much wrong with what he's saying. For one, if the airline truly gave them separate seats, he should talk to the flight attendants, not just grab someone else's seat. And also, maybe cynically, I suspect he didn't even book seats together or pay for 2 first-class seats. He probably just grabbed the first-class seat, hoping the person assigned to me would be a pushover. "I'm sorry your seats got messed up," I say, trying to stay as calm as possible. "But I can't give up my seat. Maybe a flight attendant can help you find 2 seats together, in economy or something?" He doesn't like that suggestion. Not one bit. He lets out a harsh laugh. "Are you stupid? I paid for these seats and we are going to sit here." His sudden shift from fake polite to openly hostile is jarring. He reaches up and actually presses the call button himself, summoning a flight attendant. At this point, I'm blocking the aisle, and people behind me in economy are still shuffling in. A man behind me coughs, clearly waiting for me to move so he can pass. I awkwardly step aside into the little alcove by the bulkhead as much as I can, my carry-on still in hand, as the entitled dad remains sprawled in my seat with his daughter. A flight attendant, let's call her Attendant Alice for clarity, arrives, smiling politely but looking a bit stressed. The flight's full and everyone's boarding. I don't envy her dealing with this. "Is there a problem here?" she asks. Before I can speak, the father jumps in. "Yes, there is," he exclaims angrily. "This kid is trying to steal our seats. We're supposed to be sitting here together, but the airline gave my daughter a seat. Way back there," he lies, jabbing a finger towards the back. "This is unacceptable." I quickly interject. "Actually, I have the ticket for this seat, 4A. I show Alice my boarding pass. She takes it and then asks the man for his passes. He reluctantly hands over his crumpled boarding passes for 12B and 12C. Sir, the attendant says to him firmly, your seats are 12B and C. That's in economy. This seat, she gestures to 4A, is this passenger's seat. She nods at me. The father scowls, still not moving. Well, we need to sit together. She's a little child. You can't expect her to sit alone back there. Alice seems sympathetic but stays professional. Of course, sir. Did you ask at the gate about any seat changes, or ask other passengers to switch so you could be seated together? He just waves his hand dismissively. There were no seats together. That's why I'm doing this. My daughter's scared and needs me next to her. I'm sure this gentleman wouldn't mind taking our seats in row 12, right? He looks at me with this awful forced grin that probably was meant to seem friendly but comes off as a threat. I respond immediately. Actually, I do mind. I booked the seat, and I'd like to keep it. Alice nods at me understandingly. Sir, she addresses the man, I'm sorry, but if you needed to sit together with your child, we cannot take another passenger seat for you. We might be able to find 2 economy passengers willing to swap so you can sit together back there, but there are no extra first-class seats open. The man's patience snaps. He raises his voice, booming now across the small cabin. No! I paid for first class for my daughter. She deserves to sit here. I'm not taking her to the back. That statement confirms my suspicion that he only paid for 1 seat, but is now bluffing that both are his. People in the first-class cabin are definitely listening now. I see a lady in 5 peek around the seat, and the businessman across from me has taken off his noise-canceling headphones to figure out what's going on. Alice, the flight attendant, tries to keep her voice soothing. Sir, I understand traveling with children can be stressful, but you cannot take someone else's seat. If you don't go back to your assigned seats, I'll have to call the gate agent or security. At the mention of security, the father stands up abruptly. For a second, I think he's finally going to leave, but instead he thrusts his toddler into my seat. Yes, he literally plops his little girl down into 4A where I was supposed to be sitting and towers over me. You want me to drag my daughter to the back of the plane where some pervert could bother her? He snarls at the attendant. This guy here should have some decency. He's a grown man. What does it matter if he sits in economy for a few hours so a child can be comfortable? I'm just standing there in the aisle, stunned and getting more upset by the second. It matters because I paid for this seat, I say, trying to keep my voice from shaking. Everyone is looking at us now. The economy passengers behind are rubbernecking. As they slowly file past, the first-class folks are either wide-eyed or pretending to be very interested in their phones to avoid the drama. The little girl starts whimpering now, sensing her dad's anger. She's clutching the unicorn and kicking her legs against the seat. I actually feel really bad for her. None of this is her fault, and she's probably overwhelmed. I don't blame her for crying, honestly. I'm on the verge of it myself, from frustration. Alice signals to another flight attendant. Maybe the senior one. I'll call him Bob. Bob comes over, a stern look on his face. What's the matter here? He asks in that authoritative no-nonsense tone. The dad launches into the story again. This passenger is refusing to move to his rightful seat in economy so I can sit with my daughter in first class. He's being completely selfish and heartless. The way he spins it, I look like some kind of monster making a baby cry. I quickly pipe up. That's not true. I have a ticket for this seat. He's trying to take it. Attendant Bob holds up his hand to stop us. He asks me calmly, Sir, you have 4A, correct? Yes, I nod, handing my boarding pass again. He looks at it, then at the father. And you are assigned 12B and 12C? The father gives a tight nod, arms folded, acting like this is all ridiculous and he's the victim. Bob continues, All right, I understand you want to sit with your daughter. But this isn't your seat, and we cannot force another passenger out of their seat. We might be able to reseat you together in economy. Otherwise, you need to take your assigned seats now, or we'll have to remove you from the flight. The father does not like the word remove. He gets even louder. This is outrageous. She is 4 years old. She is terrified to sit alone. He points a finger inches from Bob's face. Do you want to be responsible for traumatizing a child? Because I will sue this airline for emotional distress if you make her sit alone. Meanwhile, the poor kid is now full-on crying because her dad is shouting. The first-class cabin is basically at a standstill. No one can get around us because Dad is blocking the aisle, I'm standing there with my carry-on and nowhere to sit, and 2 flight attendants are now in a standoff with this guy. I hear murmurs from behind me in economy like, What's the holdup? And another voice whispering, There's some problem up there with a seat or something. I lean down a bit to try and level with the man, albeit from a slight distance, because frankly he's unhinged. Sir, I say, as evenly as possible, I'm sorry your daughter is upset. If it were just a simple seat swap in the same class, I'd consider, but I'm not going to give up my first-class seat that I paid a lot for and move to economy. I motion to the empty economy seats visible just beyond the curtain. Maybe someone back there will swap with you for 2 seats together. He looks at me like I just told him to jump off a bridge. You selfish piece of, he starts to say, but Bob, the flight attendant, steps between us slightly, raising a hand. All right, that's enough, Bob says firmly. Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time to please gather your belongings and take your seats in row 12 now. We will sort this out, but we need to complete boarding and depart. The father is now in full-on tantrum mode, ironically matching his toddler. He slams his hand on the top of seat 4B, the one his daughter is now in. No, I want 2 first-class seats for my family. If this cheapskate would just move, he gestures angrily at me. I can't help but scoff. Cheapskate, you're the one who didn't pay for a first-class seat for your kid, man. Probably not the smartest retort, but I'm at wit's end. That sets him off. He suddenly lunges forward, and that's when he grabs my arm, his fingers digging painfully into my forearm. How dare you talk to me like that, he yells in my face. He's actually trying to yank me backward, as if he can physically haul me to economy. It all happens in a blur. Hey, get your hands off me, I shout, instinctively pulling my arm back. The flight attendants immediately step in. Alice gasps and says, Sir, you need to stop! Bob reaches for the man, and out of nowhere another passenger, the businessman who was across the aisle, stands up and says loudly, That's enough, pal. Let him go. The father briefly lets go of my arm, only to turn and snap at the businessman. Mind your own damn business. This is none of your concern. Businessman guy responds, You're making it everyone's business by holding up this flight and yelling. A couple of other voices from first class chime in agreement like, Yeah, sit down, and come on, we're all tired. Now the father is outnumbered socially, but he's too furious to care. He turns back to me, breathing hard like a bull, about to charge. For a second, I honestly think he might punch me. I'm tense and ready to defend myself, heart hammering in my chest. Bob, the flight attendant, is already speaking into his walkie or phone to call the captain or security. I hear him say something like, We have an unruly passenger in first class refusing to sit, possible removal. The father hears this too, and he just loses it. You're gonna remove me? In front of my child? This is unbelievable. He grabs his daughter from my seat now, picking her up. And the girl is wailing. He's holding this poor crying kid, and still ranting. This airline is discriminating against parents. We're being treated like garbage. His face is contorted in rage, but now also maybe a hint of panic because he realized this could actually end with him off the flight. At this point, the gate manager, a woman in a blazer with a walkie-talkie, has rushed onto the plane, likely alerted by the attendants. She approaches and speaks in a calm but firm tone. Sir, I need you to calm down and listen to me. He starts in on her too. Are you with the airline? Good, tell them to give us a damn seat up here together. My daughter is terrified. The gate manager responds, Sir, I understand your concern. We have held the flight for this issue. If you want to fly today, you need to take your assigned seats right now. She signals to someone behind her. I see 2 airport security personnel, not quite TSA, maybe airline security or airport police, now at the plane door, stepping in. The father sees them too, and his eyes go wide for a moment. Are you kidding me? You're calling security on me? In front of my child? His tone is now more panicked than angry. He looks at his daughter in his arms, then back at security. One officer, a big guy in a security uniform, says calmly, Sir, is there a problem? The flight attendant explains, This passenger is refusing to go to his seat. The security guy nods, and then addresses the father. Sir, you need to come with us off the plane for a discussion. No, we're not getting off this plane, the father yells. I have done nothing wrong. This is my seat. Now he's just straight up lying to the security guys, hoping they won't know the details. He clutches the toddler to his chest. The girl hides her face in his shoulder, sobbing. The second security officer, a woman, steps forward gently. Where is your boarding pass, sir? He jerks his head toward 12 BC. Back there. But they told me I could take this seat because of my kid. Another blatant lie. I finally interject, voice shaky but audible. No, they didn't. He's lying. I have the boarding pass for this seat. He just refused to move. The security man gives me a quick nod of thanks for the info. The father quickly shouts over me, He's lying. That's my seat. He's trying to steal it. And now everyone is ganging up on me. This is absolutely surreal. I feel like I'm in a bad dream or a hidden camera prank. My hands are trembling and I realize I'm sweating. How the hell did this escalate so much? At this point, pretty much the entire plane is dead silent watching the spectacle. Economy passengers are craning their necks in the aisle. Someone in economy says loudly, Just get off the plane, dude. And a couple of people actually clap or agree. The father shoots a death glare towards the voice from economy, then at me. This isn't over, he growls at me under his breath. It's low, but I hear it clear as day. An angry promise. The security officers gently but firmly take hold of the man by each arm. The female officer says, Sir, let's talk about this outside, okay? We need to de-escalate this situation. Surrounded, the father finally starts to capitulate. He allows himself to be ushered toward the exit, carrying his daughter. The little girl's cries have subsided to sniffles. She's probably exhausted and confused. As he passes me in the aisle, the man looks at me with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've just done," he hisses. I'm too stunned, and frankly scared to reply. He is escorted out of the plane. The gate manager follows, speaking into our radio. "I hear something about we might have to offload his luggage and check if the wife is on board." "Wait, wife?" I hadn't seen a wife or partner with him, but maybe she was already seated in economy. Perhaps seat 12C was the wife's and he was 12B. Or he was alone with the kid. I have no clue. It's chaos. Once he's gone, there's an audible sigh of relief in the cabin. One of the first-class passengers says good riddance, not quite under his breath. I feel a little dizzy from the adrenaline dump. Alice, the original flight attendant, turns to me and puts a hand on my shoulder kindly. "Are you all right, sir?" she asks. I nod, though I'm not really all right. My arm where he grabbed me kind of hurts, and I'm just mentally frazzled. "Let's get you seated," she says softly. Finally, I step past row 4B, where the man had put his daughter, and sit down in my rightful seat, 4A. My legs feel like jelly. I buckle my seatbelt with shaking hands. The businessman across the aisle gives me a thumbs up and mutters, "Hell of a show, huh?" I let out a breathy laugh, more just relief that it's over. "I did not sign up for this," I whisper back. The flight attendants are now closing the overhead bins and preparing to arm the doors. We're delayed about 15 minutes because of all that, but finally the plane pushes back. Through the window I can see 2 security officers on the tarmac by the jet bridge, holding that father's arms as they talk near a police vehicle. Even from a distance, his body language is furious, jerking around. Another figure, a woman holding the little girl, stands a few feet away, so the wife was there, I guess. I feel a pang of sympathy for her and the child. They didn't cause this, he did. Now their trip is ruined too. As we begin to taxi, I'm just shaking my head in disbelief. I cannot fathom how someone could think that hijacking another passenger seat is okay, to the point of getting physically aggressive. And yet it happened to me. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But unfortunately, the drama was only just beginning. I'll update soon with what happened after we landed, because this entitled dad wasn't done trying to make me pay for what happened. Update 1. First off, I did not expect my story to blow up like this. Thank you for the support and feedback. I'm honestly overwhelmed, and glad to know I wasn't crazy to stand my ground. So here's what's happened since that chaotic flight. When I landed, I saw I had a voicemail and an email from the airline. They apologized for the incident and wanted to check on me. I actually ended up speaking with the customer relations manager later that day. She was very polite and concerned, and she informed me that the airline had flagged the incident in their system. According to her, the father was indeed removed and handed over to airport authorities. She also casually mentioned that passengers who behave like that often face a permanent ban from flying with the airline. Good riddance, I thought. I told her I was mostly okay, just a bit shaken, and with a sore arm where he grabbed me. She asked if I needed any medical attention. I didn't, just a minor bruise. And if I was interested in pursuing any action. At the time, I said I wasn't sure and was just trying to process everything. She reassured me that their security team had collected statements from the flight crew and some passengers, and that if I did want to follow up legally, I could request those reports. It felt good to know the airline took it seriously. They even offered me a travel voucher as an apology for the whole ordeal and the delay it caused. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and where the "this isn't over" promise from that entitled dad comes back into play. About 2 days after I got home, I received a call from an officer at the airport police department from the city where we departed. He was following up on the incident. At first, I assumed it was just standard procedure to get my statement. I recounted the events to the best of my memory, and the officer listened carefully. But then the officer informed me that the father had given a statement as well, and his version was shockingly different. This man had apparently told the police that I had assaulted him on the plane. According to him, I threatened his child and physically pushed him, which is just an outrageous lie. I was flabbergasted hearing this. It's one thing to twist the story with the flight attendants in the moment, but to double down with a false police report? That's bold. And incredibly stupid. Thankfully, the officer sounded skeptical as he asked me for my side. I mean, the truth was very much on my side here. I had multiple flight attendants and other passengers who witnessed him grab me and cause the disturbance. I mentioned that there should be several witnesses, and possibly even security footage, from the boarding area or jet bridge. The officer agreed that the man's story seemed inconsistent with the reports they already had. In fact, he straight up said, "We have statements from the flight crew that conflict with his account, sir. Honestly, it sounds like his claims don't hold water, but we need to dot our I's and cross our T's." I asked if I needed a lawyer, and the officer said at this point they were just collecting information, but if the father wanted to pursue charges, it could turn into a formal case. He also said that I had the right to press charges against the father for grabbing me. That was something I hadn't really considered in depth yet. To be honest, I was still so annoyed and tired of the whole thing that the idea of legal drama wasn't appealing. But hearing that the dad was trying to frame me basically lit a new fire in me. I told the officer point blank that I absolutely wanted to file a complaint or charges for assault, given the outright lies the father was telling. The officer said he would note that and that someone might follow up with me for a formal statement or paperwork. Over the next week, a lot happened quickly. I got a call from an airline security representative who basically reiterated that they had my back if I needed statements from crew or passengers for any legal case. They also informed me, off the record, that the father and his family were placed on an internal no-fly list pending the outcome of an investigation. So at least he wouldn't be harassing anyone else on their airline for the time being. Then I received another call from the airport police. This time it was a detective, I believe. He informed me that the father had indeed tried to follow through with pressing charges against me, unbelievably claiming that I had yanked his child's arm and instigated the fight. When I heard that, I think I laughed out loud out of sheer disbelief. I made it very clear to the detective that the opposite was true, and I gave him contact info for the businessman who had stepped in and maybe other passengers I remembered. I had actually chatted with that businessman during the flight after things calmed down, and we exchanged contacts just in case he had seen everything. The detective acknowledged that the father's story seemed to have holes, especially since apparently the guy claimed I basically attacked him unprovoked. The flight attendant's statements described the situation very differently, as did the security officers who hauled him off. The detective said the case was likely going nowhere in terms of me being charged. In fact, it was more likely to turn against the father for making a false report. Sure enough, a few days later I got an update. The local prosecutor, I guess the DA, reviewing the incident decided not to charge me with anything, of course, and instead was considering charges against the father for assault, for grabbing me, and for the disturbance on the plane. Basically, the tables turned on that jerk. I was asked if I would be willing to testify or provide an official statement if it went to trial, and I said absolutely, yes. At this point, I was pretty satisfied that the truth was coming out, and he was facing consequences. I updated the airline representative I'd spoken with, and she wasn't allowed to give me all the details, but she hinted that the man had been notified he's banned from their airline for life due to his conduct. Also, interestingly, I learned that because the plane was still at the gate and the door open when this altercation happened, it fell under the airport's jurisdiction, so local authorities handle it. If we had been in the air, the FBI and FAA would have been involved, which carries even heavier federal charges. Either way, he's in trouble. As of now, the father has been hit with a notice to appear in court for misdemeanor assault and for causing a disturbance on the aircraft. I hear he's absolutely furious about it, no surprise, and he's apparently still sticking to his warped version of the story to anyone who will listen. Word through the grapevine, from one of the other passengers who happened to see the family in the terminal later, is that the dad was screaming about suing me and the airline for traumatizing his child. So it sounds like he's going to fight this, or at least try some kind of counterattack. Honestly, I'm not too worried because so many people saw what happened, but it does piss me off that I even have to deal with this at all. The guy could have just walked away with a minor embarrassment and maybe a refund for his ticket if he begged the airline. Instead, he's doubled down and is trying to make me the villain. The next step looks like there will be a court hearing. I'm definitely going to show up for it and see this through. I'll update again when I know more or after the court date. I really hope he comes to his senses before then, but knowing this guy, I doubt it. Stay tuned. Update 2, final update. Buckle up, because the court hearing was yesterday and it was a roller coaster. I'm still processing the outcome, and while I wish I could say this ended in some satisfying karmic way, the reality is a bit more complicated and messy. So the entitled dad did show up to court, flanked by a lawyer and with his wife hovering in the back of the courtroom. I arrived as well, along with the businessman who had intervened on the flight. He volunteered to testify on my behalf. Absolute champ of a guy. I won't drag out all the legal minutiae, but essentially, the father was facing a couple of misdemeanor charges, one for assault, grabbing me, and one for disorderly conduct on the plane. He had pleaded not guilty, of course. From the moment I saw him in the courtroom, the guy was seething. He avoided eye contact with me, but I could see him clenching his jaw as the proceedings started. His lawyer actually tried to float a last-minute plea deal before things formally began. Basically, they wanted the assault charge dropped, and for him to plead to a minor disturbance violation with just a small fine. The prosecutor and my side weren't having that. I sure wasn't about to agree to anything that erased what he did to me, so we went ahead with the hearing. I ended up testifying, as did the flight attendant. One of them came in uniform on her day off. To speak, I was so grateful. And the businessman who witnessed everything. The father testified too, doubling down on his wild version of the story. He actually had the gall to claim under oath that I lunged at his child and that he feared for his daughter's safety, hence his aggressive actions. It was almost impressively delusional, I had to work hard to keep a calm face while he spewed these lies in front of the judge. Thankfully, the judge, and everyone else in the room, could see through him. The flight attendant calmly contradicted every lie, detailing how the father initiated everything. The businessman flat out stated that I never once threatened the child, and that the only person who got physical was the dad. At one point, the judge even asked the father's lawyer, "Where is the child now?" The lawyer said the child was with a relative, to which the judge responded, "Good, because I wouldn't want her to hear the things being said about her father in this courtroom." That made the father go red in the face. As the evidence stacked up against him, you could see the change in the father's demeanor. He went from quiet smugness to fidgeting and scowling. His lawyer looked like he was eating a lemon. When the guilty verdict came down, yes, the judge found him guilty on both misdemeanor counts, the father exploded. He yelled, "This is a joke," in the middle of the courtroom. The judge warned him to sit down and be quiet, but he kept ranting, saying stuff like, "I was just protecting my kid. These people are all against me. It's all lies." It was chaos for a minute. His own lawyer was trying to shush him. The judge, visibly annoyed, immediately held the father in contempt of court for his outburst. Court officers moved in to make sure the situation didn't escalate further. I just sat there with my heart pounding, kind of astonished that he was actually making things worse for himself even now. After order was restored, sentencing was passed. It wasn't some huge, life-ruining punishment like maybe some folks on Reddit might fantasize about. But it was significant enough. The judge gave him a hefty fine, several $1,000s combined, and a year of probation with mandatory anger management classes. The judge sternly told him that if he ever pulled a stunt like this again, on a plane or anywhere, he'd likely see jail time. The father was simmering with rage, but kept quiet at that point, probably because his lawyer was gripping his arm. As we all started filing out of the courtroom, the father shot me one last death glare. If looks could kill, I'd be 6 feet under. His wife trailed behind him, looking utterly mortified. Honestly, I felt a bit sorry for her, and especially for their little girl. Outside the courtroom, I took a deep breath of relief. The businessman who testified patted me on the back and said, "Glad that's over." The flight attendant who came gave me a hug and told me I did the right thing by standing firm. I won't lie, I was relieved that the legal part was done, but I didn't exactly feel triumphant. More than anything, I felt a mix of exhaustion and relief that this nightmare scenario was finally, hopefully, over. As I was walking to the parking lot, guess who I see? The entitled dad, off to the side, having an absolute meltdown at his lawyer. I could hear him from a distance. He was ranting that he's going to appeal, that they're all idiots, and spewing plenty of profanity. His lawyer looked done with him. I hurried my pace to avoid any direct interaction. The last thing I wanted was another face-off. I kept my head down and made a beeline for my car. Just as I was unlocking my car door, I heard a shout. It was him. He had spotted me. "You think you're so smart, huh?" he yelled from across the parking lot, marching a few steps in my direction. I felt a jolt of fear. Here we go again, I thought. He was still not letting it go. I didn't respond. I just got into my car as quickly as possible. His wife and lawyer quickly grabbed him to hold him back, and a court security officer shouted at him to leave. The last I saw, his wife was dragging him toward their own car while he continued to glare daggers at me. I drove off, hands shaking on the wheel. So that's it. After all that, he's got a criminal record now, some fines, a ban from the airline, and presumably one very angry wife. But there's no neat bow to tie on this. The guy didn't suddenly realize he was wrong or apologize to me. He left that courthouse as bitter as ever, and I'm just glad to be done with him.